good morning, early morning hustle. Let's go ahead and talk about functions. So in this video, I'm actually going to digress a little bit in a sense of getting you all just familiar with some elements, even though this is primarily just functions. Like in this class, because it's so fast, you don't necessarily get to create our own documents at times. So let's do that. So I'm going to open up the directory, our stat class. Open this up. Okay. Look here. We have all the R. We have all the data. That's cool. We're organized. We're very organized. That's amazing. But we're not going to work out of this. It's just important. It's nice for you, nice for us to see how this actually works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and create a new file. And then I'm going to say learning.qmd. Okay. So this is a Quarto file, and we haven't really spent time discussing, what is a Quarto file. But Quarto file is a file type that allows you to program not only in R in Python, but also in Markdown as well. So you're able to create documents, websites, and things of that regard. So what I'm going to do is some basic things, and then we'll get right into functions. All right, so I'm going to type 2 or 3 tildes. So for my YAML, and my YAML is essentially just my header information. So this is info or learning stuff. Okay. And then for the most part, you can just leave it like that, just for now, because I just want to introduce you to this. So if we wanted to do headers as if this was a traditional, Markdown file, we can say first you're going to learn about functions, and then we're going to learn about multiple inputs. A NAT in functions. Okay. And functions. Okay. And then maybe even default functions. Okay. So what you can now do is create a code cell. It's funny they do Python first. So interesting. Do R, and then you can just start typing. I don't know. Empty head of empty cars. Okay. Let's actually do a function. Oh, we haven't learned functions yet. But just head of empty cars, and then we can just do another one. Okay. And then say empty cars. I don't know. Empty cars. $. Psych. Okay. Something along those lines. And what I can now do is go to visual, which we traditionally have seen in the past. It's what I work in primarily. And it looks a little nicer. It looks clean. But then what we can do is compile this or render this. Okay. In the following manner. Fun for funsies. Just look at the time change. If you go a couple of seconds, I had to look it up. No pride, because this is a tad bit different, and which is really interesting in that if you just press preview, it shows it to you. I can now see it here, and you can also see it as HTML file here, which is quite interesting. So that's how you can create a Quarto file. This is how you can render it into HTML. You can have your output, believe it's output. If I'm wrong, I'm gonna take the L. It's fine. But I can output as a document as well. Okay, then. Another little modification. You can see it's a format, not output. My apologies. The time change. And now you can have it as a a Word document as well. There's other formats like PDFs and things in that regard, but I prefer using a doc and then converting it into a PDF. Sometimes it can be kind of clunky when working with Quarto files. So that's that. That's some little tidbit. I put in the title that we did that. I'm going to delete this. I like to be organized. Okay. So let's go ahead and jump right back into it. And if you want to save it, it's fine. I just want to keep this as clean as possible. All right, so we're going to go to visual, be able to see it. We're on video number 11, okay, of the series. And here, in terms of functions, we all should have seen this in a previous class, CS 101, right? And so when it comes, why does it keep doing that? Okay, so here, the basic structure of a function is a little different from Python. In Python, you just use the DEF functionality, but the syntax is different, but the idea is the same in that you provide an input. This is a simple function. We provide an input, right? And then you can save the information stored into a variable and then return it. If you didn't actually do this, the last element that's being processed will then be returned. So what we can do is we can test this. So this is converting our tons into kilograms. Okay, so if you run this, you're going to see that it's going to print out this statement. Okay. And what I'm arguing is if I comment this out, it's still printed out regardless. Okay, so that's pretty much the syntax for creating a function. So key elements is the function in and of itself, the input that you provide, and then it provides an output, the last line, or even if you directly put a return in it, it will provide that last line as the return element. This is pretty straightforward. Again, we're going to this last 3 videos really meant for the last video that I create. But why don't you all take a moment and fill in the blanks for question 1 regarding adding 2 numbers. Use X and Y. Okay, use X and Y. You can pause. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing. Okay, I'm going to have 2 inputs, X, then Y. And then I'm going to add them together. Okay, X plus Y. Mind you, there's a function for this called sum. Okay, and then what do you think we should return? Result. If I can spell, I can spell. Here we go. Result. Okay, so we're going to test 5 and 10. Okay, so we're going to now apply this function here with the numbers 5, then 10. And then print the result. Okay, so that is how this function works. Okay, that's how a function works. Great. Now let's say we have a default argument. Let's say we had a default argument. What I mean by that is that if the user doesn't provide a variable, or a value for the variable, we're just going to specify one as that particular variable. So when I predefine within the function n is equal to 3 and column is equal to HP, by default, it's going to store that information. By default, if I don't provide any information, it's going to assume that n is equal to 3 and column is equal to HP. So this is going to sort it, and it's going to provide from least to greatest, decreasing from greatest to least. And then it's going to return the head, which is going to be the number of rows based of. It's going to sort it by the variable. My apologies. Greatest to least, and then it's going to provide the number of rows, the number of columns. No, number of rows. Number of rows is still a data frame. Based on that number. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this. That's good. But now if I just say column is equal to miles per gallon, this should not work. Why should it not work? Dr. Williams, it's because there's no quotes. Okay. There's no quotes. So if we put this in quotes, it will work. And it should only provide 3 because we didn't, that's the default. Same thing here. And it's sorted by miles per gallon. The other one was sorted by horsepower. If I were to say N is equal to 10, or let's say something crazy, 7, right? And this is going to be not default. The horsepower is going to be used as the variable by default. So 335, 264, 245, 245. So it is decreasing. So it's doing that by that variable. Okay. So again, you've probably seen this in Python. So that's cool. Question 2. Okay. This is but it's fine. This is fine. So the default name is supposed to take a moment and you can try this. Okay. You can pause the video, but I'm gonna keep going. Let's say the default is guest. And if someone doesn't provide a name, it's just gonna say guest. Okay. And so I'm just gonna put the name of the person that we're trying to greet. I know this is not in the code, but why don't you just go ahead and put a space here. Okay. And then you can have default with nothing and then say name is equal to, I know it says Anna, but that's not my name. My name is Dr. Williams. Dr. Williams. So it should say hello guest, and then it's going to say Dr. Williams. Hello, Dr. Williams. There we go. Hello. It's interesting about the spaces. Okay, let's do page 0. It'd probably be better. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. That makes more sense. Okay. Paste 0 versus paste. They work very similarly. You can even use string within string glue. They work very similarly. But just different nuances. Okay. So that is having multiple arguments. This has multiple arguments because it has n is equal to 3 and column is equal to horsepower, but you also have default arguments as well. This one's a little bit different from the previous in that what you're doing is you're providing a list back. Now this is important, okay, because I traditionally don't emphasize the utilization of list. In the last, I'll say, what is this, video 11, 10 videos maybe? I probably just emphasize data frames and vectors. But this one's important because list can then be used within a function as an output, which then can be turned into a data frame. So it's like a means to an end. So we should be cognizant of this. So this function is pretty straightforward in that what you're doing is just applying a vector into this function, and it's finding the mean, finding the median, finding the standard deviation, and then storing it as a list. And I agree. We could have put this in a data frame, but the power of being able to work with list is going to be critical in terms of having multiple data frames, and you want to transform it or even condense it in some way, shape, or form, and then, turn it back into a data frame or keep it as a list. So it's just a way of just working with multiple sorts of data input. Excuse me. So let's go ahead and run this. And when we run this, we should get 3 numbers. Okay. Because I did average. If I just print out all the stats, I should get 3 numbers. Okay. And this is going to be stored as a list. This is going to be stored as a list. So we're going to run this now. You see it's stored as a list. Okay. That is pretty much it. We didn't necessarily have to, I can give you some tidbits here. We didn't necessarily have to name them within the list. Okay. I'm just going to do this for a second so I can have more teaching moments in this video. So if I didn't name it, it's going to be specified as these indices 1, 2, 3, all in double brackets. But it's nice to be able to provide the name so that we can easily gain access to them. So that's what was there in the code previously. So average, I get the 20.09. Okay. With that being said, why don't you all create this function? Okay. Take a moment and work on that. All right. So that one, in this situation, you're going to provide a vector very similar to what you've seen in the previous video, numeric vector. Okay. And then you're going to find the mean. Okay. Mean of that vector. And I'm going to make this a learning moment. Okay. Numeric vector, num vector. And you'll find the sum, that's a sum function of num vector. And then you can return it. And what are you going to return? Stat list. Okay. So once you do that, great, fantastic. We can create a vector. I think the vector is supposed to be 10, 20, 30, right? So 10, 20, 30. But instead of just simply getting one of these two statistics, I'm just going to show both of them. So I'm going to provide the stats. And so then, there we go. We're going to run this. We get the average is 20, which knows that, and the sum should be 60. But now let's say if someone were to be like, oh, I'm cool, but and then now we pay attention and provide a missing value or an NA. Okay. So when I run this, I'm pretty sure I might have already gone over this before, but I'm going to still do it again. This is going to give me NAs. Okay. And the reason for that is because currently we're not removing NA from the vector. So one way of doing this is to do NA dot remove is equal to true. Okay, and then do the same thing for the total sum. And if you're doing standard deviation or variance, any type of statistic, this little element, this little doohickey, is nice to be able to have underneath your repertoire to be able to handle such things, so that you can calculate your values. All right, so that is it for this video. Thank you, and have a good rest of your day.